NFL fans, welcome back to another episode of the J All Day Show. Today, we're doing Week 3 predictions with scores for all of the NFL games. Week 2 was a tough one, especially in Survivor. How about the Raiders beating the Ravens? If you were in Survivor, a lot of people got absolutely crushed by that game, right? I was looking over my predictions from Week 2 last Tuesday's video, and I went 8-8. Considering how crazy of a week it was, I thought I actually did way worse. So far this year, straight up money line picks, I'm 20-12. Not too bad. We went 12-4 week 1, 8-8 week 2. I'm looking to get over the 10 wins this week for you guys. I'm going to predict all 16 games with scores. Stick around. Before we get started with these predictions, I just want to go over the stats for the first 2 weeks and see who's doing well and who's not doing so well. So here's the worst rush defenses in the NFL. The Colts, Panthers, Rams, Raiders, Giants, Eagles are up down here at 315, but the Colts are getting absolutely torched by the run. So we got to take that into consideration for the coming weeks. This is the worst pass defense. The Ravens, Chiefs, Jaguars, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Eagles are getting absolutely shredded through the air, man. The Ravens, most teams are attacking them through the air. They've been pretty good against the run, but man, these are the teams you want to target through the air. This is total defense per game. Eagles, horrible, almost 400 yards per game. Rams, Colts, Eagles, Chiefs, Buccaneers, Packers, Giants, Panthers are giving up the most yards of total offense. Okay, this is the points per game. The better defenses, right? Chargers, Steelers, Vikings, Saints, Patriots, all doing extremely well so far. This is the best rush defenses, right? The last one I want to talk about today. The Ravens only giving up 99 yards. Patriots, Saints, Lions, Pittsburgh Steelers. The Saints and the Steelers have some of the best defenses in the NFL, so we got to be careful if we're targeting these teams with bets or daily fantasy. All right, let's get into these predictions. All right, NFL fans, here we are with the predictions kicking off this week. Thursday Night Football, Patriots at the Jets. The line looks a little heavy to me at -6.5. I expect this game to be within a field goal either way. The Patriots are going to still rely heavily on the run. They're running the ball over 30 times per game, and the Jets haven't fared particularly well against the run so far this year. But Jacoby Brissett is still extremely limited. He's throwing around 150 yards every single game. And Aaron Rodgers looked pretty good. The Jets got a nice road victory last week against a pretty mediocre Titans team, right? So I think this game is going to be really, really close. I'm going to go with the Jets in a close game, 23-20. The Patriots, in my opinion, that offense is still very one-dimensional, right? If I'm the Jets, I'm going to stack the box and force Jacoby Brissett to beat me. The pass rush hasn't been great for the Jets defense. They've definitely underperformed in the last few weeks. If we take a look at some of these stats that I mentioned earlier, the Jets are in the bottom 10 for rushing yards allowed. The pass defense, has been a little bit better, but for the most part, the total defense, the Jets are giving up around 350 yards per game. That's like in the bottom 10 of the NFL. But luckily for the Jets, the Patriots don't have a ton of weapons on the outside. Hunter Henry is a valuable option in the passing game for Jacoby Brissett, but outside of that, there's not a ton the Jets have to be worried about, especially because their cornerback play has been pretty solid for the most part. Their problem is they're not getting a huge pass rush right now, right? So does that mean the Patriots are going to be in this game? I think so. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to win this game by a last-second field goal. I'm going with the Jets 23-20. All right, let's move on to the Giants at the Browns. The Giants are dealing with a weird kicking situation that played out horribly for them last week. I mean, it's just, the team is just, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about them, but Malik Neighbors absolutely balled out last week, man. He had 18 targets, 10 catches. He had an extremely good game. But outside of him, Devin Singletary has been okay for the Giants. But to go on the road against this defense, The Cleveland Browns still have a legit great defense, and Denzel Ward is going to be covering Malik Neighbors, and I expect that pass rush to really get in Daniel Jones's lap. I think the Cleveland Browns win this game 23-13. Deshaun Watson played a little bit better last week, but he still has a lot to prove, in my opinion. We need those wide receivers like Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper to really step up with Njoku still out, right? So I think the Browns win this game. They probably cover the spread, but that's only because I think the pass rush really gets home against the Giants. I really like Cleveland's pass rush. They've been okay in the first 2 weeks. They haven't been as dominant as I thought this Browns defense was going to be through 2 weeks, but I really think they have a big game against a Giants team that's not very good, in my opinion. I think they cover the spread as well. So I'm going 23-13 Cleveland Browns. Real quick, NFL fans, don't forget to check out my memberships. $4.99 a month. You get all my Survivor picks every single Friday, and you also get all my bets. I'll go through my whole book of all the bets I make each and every Friday just for members. And I'm going to start to do a Millionaire Maker secret lineup on Fridays to help you guys make some cash with your bets. Don't forget to check out the memberships in the description below. All right, next up, guys, is another big line. The Denver Broncos traveling pretty much across the country to go to Tampa Bay. Playing in that humidity is never easy. It is a real factor, guys, especially in the second half of games. The Denver Broncos offense has been terrible, like absolutely terrible. They just can't do anything at this point in the season. I expect the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win this game. But last week against Detroit, Luke Goedeke did not play. He's questionable for week 3, and Justin Skule played in that game, and he was absolutely terrible. Aiden Hutchinson, he's a dominant player, don't get me wrong, but he ate this guy's lunch. He could have had like 8 or 9 sacks, really. I think he finished with 5. We got to really keep our eye on that. Nose tackle Vita Vea is dealing with some injuries as well. We'll have to see if Antoine Winfield kind of plays in this game, because that would be huge for them to get him back. But I really think the Buccaneers are just too good everywhere. How are the Broncos? They do have a good number 1 corner that's probably going to cover Mike Evans, Pat Surtain. So then you have Godwin and Jalen McMillan, who's been a really good presence for that wide receiver room, the rookie. I think he went to Washington. I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win this game in dominant fashion. I'm saying 27-10. I don't think the Denver Broncos are going to score a lot of points. That blitz-heavy Todd Bowles defense is really going to get after this rookie quarterback, in my opinion. But just keep an eye on that right tackle situation. Hopefully Goedeke plays, because his backup, not very good at all whatsoever. But I like the Buccaneers in this spot. I just don't see any way this Broncos team just rapidly transforms on the road. They haven't scored a lot of points this year at all whatsoever. I look for that trend to continue in week 3. Going 27-10 Buccaneers. All right, then we move on to the Chargers at the Steelers. Man, this is a coin flip game in my opinion. The line is coming in right. Chargers are getting 2 points. You pretty much are getting 3 points when you're a home team through Vegas. The Chargers have played really good. They've run the ball really effectively, but the Pittsburgh Steelers have been pretty dominant against the run, guys. The pass rush has been extremely good too. That defense on every level is pretty good. Herbert's dealing with a banged up leg. He got an x-ray that was negative. So, man, this is a really, really tough game. I'm going with the home team. The Chargers got to travel across the country to go play in Pittsburgh. TJ Watt and Highsmith have been extremely dominant all year long. And the Chargers are very one-dimensional, man. If they can't run the ball down your throat, I think they're going to really struggle to score points. I think this is going to be a close game. It's going to be like, I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers 13-10. I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game, 16-13, something like that. But I think 13-10 Steelers is kind of right where I want to be. I don't see a lot of scoring in this game at all whatsoever. Both teams are going to want to run the ball a lot. It looks like Justin Fields is going to be starting week 3, and they're 2-0, so he may have taken the QB1 spot away from Russell Wilson. You kind of got to stick with the hot hand, right? They've been playing really well. The Steelers are always really good at home. It's really loud in Pittsburgh. The Chargers want to run the ball a lot. And I know the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to want to stack the box. They're going to bring the safeties up and force Justin Herbert to throw the ball, right? He's dealing with that ankle injury, so he might be a little limited in the pocket, right? So we could see the Steelers get some sacks in this game. I think TJ Watt and Highsmith ball out. I'm going with the Steelers in a close one. I'm changing the score. 16-13, Pittsburgh Steelers over the Chargers. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Eagles on the road at the Saints. I think the Saints blow out the Eagles. I really, really do. The Eagles defense can't stop anyone right now. They are a leaky faucet on defense, and it's not like they were banged up. They're pretty much all healthy. They get no pass rush. They can't tackle. They can't cover. Their linebackers are booty cheeks. I think the Saints win in dominant fashion. They cover the spread. I'm saying 31-17, absolute domination for the Saints. I just don't see how the Eagles win this game. Hurts is a turnover machine. I read a stat today that Saquon Barkley, since he's come in the league, leads all running backs in drop passes. He lost the game for the Eagles by dropping that pass. I mean, there was a tons of reasons why they lost that game. Like, run the ball. Just run the ball. Sirianni, they have no timeouts left. Run the clock down more. He was averaging 5 yards a carry. You don't have to risk him dropping the ball, stopping the clock. Terrible coaching by the Eagles. And then they went into that prevent defense and allowed Kirk Cousins, who is very limited in his mobility. He can't really move around the pocket with that Achilles. You got to blitz him, put pressure in his face, not go into a prevent defense and let him pick you apart, go down the field in 60 seconds and score a touchdown. Awful performance by the Eagles on every facet. Offense, coaching, defense. Saints dominate this game 31-17. Then we have the Houston Texans on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. The Texans did not look good last week. They barely won that game against a Bears team that's not very good. I'm going with the upset here. I'm going the Minnesota Vikings to win at home to beat the Houston Texans. The Texans left a lot on the table last week. They didn't play particularly well against a pretty good defense, right? So the Bears defense is pretty good. The Vikings defense is just as good. They've been extremely dominant in the first two games of the year. I look for Addison to get back in the lineup. Sam Darnold's doing a good job protecting the football for the most part. Justin Jefferson got banged up a little bit in that game. He's going to play. This is a game you got to keep an eye on the injury report and make sure Justin Jefferson and Addison both don't play. If not, obviously the pick will change to the Texans if those guys are out, but I expect them to play. The Vikings have looked really good. They shut down that 49ers defense at home last week. They're playing back-to-back home games. Houston had to play Sunday night. It's not necessarily a short week, but the offense didn't look great. The defense just kind of looked okay against Caleb Williams, who hasn't looked good at all yet. I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings to get an upset here in a close game, 21-17 over the Texans. Then let's move on to the Green Bay Packers versus the Tennessee Titans. I'm going with another upset. I'm taking the Packers on the road to beat the Titans. I think that's a great bet at plus 130. I think that's an amazing bet, actually. Malik Willis played pretty good last week. They got a W. They really shut down the Colts offense. Anthony Richardson threw 3 picks. Did not look good at all. Looked very uncomfortable. And if they can do that to Anthony Richardson, they can definitely do it to Will Levis. They have not looked good at all under Brian Callahan. Callahan and Levis are kind of at each other's throat. It looks like the locker room's kind of like not good right now. DeAndre Hopkins hasn't been involved at all whatsoever. Calvin Ridley has looked great, but I expect Jair Alexander to D him up. And the Packers defense looks great. Javon Bullard, the rookie, looks really good. I love what they're doing on defense. They're running the ball really effectively, and they have all those really good young wide receivers. I'm going with the Packers to win this game, let's say 24-13. Next up on the Sunday slate, we have a really close game with the Chicago Bears on the road playing the Colts. The Colts have been like Jekyll and Hyde. They played pretty good against the Texans in week 1, and then they played horrible against the Packers week 2. That rush defense is really, really terrible. And I think that's a huge plus for the Chicago Bears, right? I really want to see if Keenan Allen plays because he's such a safety valve, especially on third down for Caleb Williams. But I think DeAndre Swift is going to run down the Colts' throat in this game, right? And really set up Caleb Williams to throw the ball down the field a little bit. Teams that don't rush the passer well or are really bad against the run, like the Colts are, can really set up play action and really take the pressure off a young quarterback. That's why I like the Bears to steal a victory on the road here versus the Colts. I do want to make sure that Keenan Allen is playing in this game because if he's not playing, I might flip my pick to the Colts. Obviously, Vegas thinks this game's really close. It's only a 1-point spread. I think that's about right because we don't really know who these teams are right now, right? The Bears' defense is really good, and I think they could give problems for Anthony Richardson in this game. And they just haven't performed well offensively yet to where I feel confident in them against a good defense like the Chicago Bears. And I think the way their defense is set up for the Colts are terrible against the run. And I think this really benefits a Bears team that really wants to run the ball, use some play action with their young quarterback, use some bootlegs with play action. I really think the Bears can steal this game on the road. I think it's going to be like a close game. I'm saying 24-23. The Bears steal one late from the Colts. Richardson just turns the ball over a lot. And when your defense is getting gouged, they've given up over 400 yards on the ground in 2 games. DeAndre Swift is going to get fed a lot. And I think that really feeds into what the Bears want to do offensively. And then if they could stay in front of the sticks and be in like 2nd and 5, 3rd and 3, you know what I mean? Not being like 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10. I think this Bears team could definitely win this game, especially if Keenan Allen is back, because those 2nd and 5s, those 3rd and 3s are great situations for a guy like Keenan Allen who is great on 3rd down. I'll do another prediction video closer to game day. I always like to do it on the spreads on Friday, even though my spread picks last week were terrible. I'm better money line picks for sure, but I'm going with the Bears to win this game on the road as slight underdogs. Then we have the Carolina Panthers on the road versus the Raiders. Bryce Young has been benched. Andy Dalton will now be the starting quarterback. I think they'll play a little bit better, right? They have some veterans offensively like Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, who could really benefit from a veteran guy who sees the field pretty well, doesn't make a lot of mistakes in Andy Dalton. The Raiders, I don't know who the Raiders are. They looked really bad in week 1. They couldn't get a pass rush at all. They couldn't stop the run. And then in week 2, they came back and beat the Ravens. I don't know who the Raiders are. I don't even know if the Raiders truly know who they are at all. But I do know that Brock Bowers is an absolute dog. If you watch my content, he was my favorite offensive player in the draft this year. His tape stood out to me more than anybody else. And he's gotten 8 and 9 targets the first 2 games. He had 18.8 fantasy points last week. He's going to get in the end zone, and I think it's going to be this week. Look for Brock Bowers and Devontae Adams to both have big games. The Raiders are probably going to rely on the run a little more than they have in past weeks. Gardner Minshew has thrown over 250 yards the first 2 games, I think, right? Or close to it. He's been looking pretty good, taking care of the football for the most part. The Panthers have been dominated the first 2 weeks, and I look for that to continue. I think the Raiders have too many good skill position players like Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers for the Panthers to stay close in this game. I think the Raiders ultimately cover the spread. I'm going to say 27-13. The Raiders win this in a one-sided game, and the Panthers continue to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. All right, NFL fans, we got the Miami Dolphins at the Seattle Seahawks. The Dolphins have to fly across the country. No Tua. Skylar Thompson is in line to be the starting quarterback. They also signed Tyler Huntley off the Baltimore practice squad. The Seahawks have played really good defense so far this season. And Geno Smith looked really good against a tough defense in the Patriots last week. It's hard for me to pick the Dolphins in this spot. I'm going to go with the Seahawks to win this game. It's a huge uphill battle for Skylar Thompson, who I don't have a ton of confidence in, especially against a Mike Macdonald defense on the road. It's not lining up in the Miami Dolphins' favor. The Seahawks probably cover this spread, in my opinion. You have to be a little bit careful in this game because the Seattle Seahawks offensive line is not very good. They played a little bit better last week, but they're just not a good unit. So the Miami Dolphins are really going to have to rely on getting a pass rush and shutting down Geno Smith. If they don't get the Geno Smith, I don't think they have a chance to win this game, especially with all those weapons the Seahawks have on offense. Jackson Smith-Njigba, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. We'll have to see if all those guys are healthy going into this game. But as of right now, I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I think the Dolphins are going to struggle to score points. So I'm going 23-13 Seattle to get the W over a Tua-less Miami Dolphins. I think they're just going to be kind of worn down mentally. You know what I mean? It's a lot to deal with. The Dolphins have had to deal with a crazy amount of stuff, from that Tyreek Hill situation in week 1 to the Tua concussion situation. It's asking a lot for this team with Skylar Thompson to go on the road and beat Mike Macdonald's defense in Seattle. I don't see it happening. We go with the Seahawks to win this game 23-13. 49ers at the Rams. 49ers are playing back-to-back road games. No Deebo Samuel, no Christian McCaffrey. But the Rams' offensive line is on like the 6th and 7th guy at like every position, right? No Puka Nacua, no Cooper Kupp. This is a battle of the Band-Aid teams, right? 49ers probably win this game. The 7 line scares me a little bit, but the Rams got absolutely blown out by Arizona last week, so I understand why the 7 points. But the 49ers aren't particularly healthy, but they have Juwan Jennings to step in for Deebo Samuel opposite Brandon Ayuk. They still got George Kittle and a really good backup running back. Right, so I think they're going to win this game. I'm going with San Francisco to win this game. I think like 27-13. Yeah, I don't think the Rams are going to score a lot of points. They just don't have the offensive line. Matt Stafford is going to be getting sacked a lot. The 49ers defense is still pretty healthy though, right? So you got to expect the 49ers defense to get after Matt Stafford. I don't expect them to score a lot of points. That's why, yeah, 24-13, 27-13, something like that. I think the 49ers win this game in dominant fashion, even though they're banged up. The Rams are just like, they have no wide receivers that are good, that are healthy. The offensive line is in shambles. It's going to be tough sledding for Rams and Rams fans this week. This is going to be a really exciting game. Detroit Lions at the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals looked pretty good last week. I called the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting an underdog win last week. That was probably my best call of the week last week. I just liked the way Tampa Bay was playing. They had some juice going into that game. And Jared Goff has not looked great so far, and he's not good on the road. Luckily, this game is inside as well. I think the Lions finally get it right and get firing on all cylinders. They've left a lot of meat on the bone. Their secondary has not played well. A lot of penalties, a lot of missed coverages. They haven't played good. Luckily, Aiden Hutchinson has been balling out, and I look for that to continue this week against an Arizona Cardinals offensive line who's not very good. Their right tackle, Jonah Williams, they just put him on IR. They did okay last week against the Rams, but I think the Lions win this game. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm going 27-24. The Lions get the victory on the road, kind of right the ship a little bit, get some confidence going into week 4. But the Arizona Cardinals are no slouch. The defense played a little bit better last week, but that's because the Rams were like a shell of themselves. Trust me, this Arizona Cardinals defense is not very good, guys. I expect Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta to really dominate this game. Get a W. I like the Lions in this game, 27-24. Both teams looked uninspired and not playing well. The Ravens 0-2. Cowboys 1-1. They got the brakes blown off them by the Saints last week at home. Man, I wonder when the last time the Cowboys lost back-to-back home games. Before that loss against the Saints, they won their last 16 home games, minus the playoff loss to the Packers. 16 regular season home wins in a row. So I just don't think the Ravens are playing good, man. The defense has given up a lot of points. They're not on the ground, but they're getting shredded through the air. They've given up like 500 yards passing through the first 2 weeks. I'm rolling with the Cowboys, man. I think they get it right this week. I'm going to be going back and forth with this game all week. I'm going to have to rely on the injury report and see who's playing, who's not playing. But the Ravens just have not looked good on every level. The defense is not the defense from last year. Losing Mike McDonald really proves how good of a defensive coordinator he actually was. The Cowboys looked unprepared to play that game against a very good system that the Saints are running right now. But I think the Cowboys win a close game. Like, I'm saying, like, 17-14, 17-16. So let's go 17-16. Cowboys get the win. I think it's going to be a close game. The Ravens just have not looked good. They're relying too heavily on Lamar Jackson to run the ball. Derrick Henry hasn't looked great. The interior of that offensive line, I said all year, was going to be a problem, and it has been. So I'm going with the Cowboys to win a close game, 17-16. Then we move on to the Chiefs at the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going with the Chiefs all day. The Falcons, I don't even know how they won that game. The Chiefs' defense has not looked great, but Kirk Cousins is pretty much immobile in the pocket. He can't move around at all whatsoever. The Chiefs with Chris Jones, they got to blitz. They got to come after him. I know Spagnuolo doesn't traditionally blitz a lot, but if you watch the tape from last week, if you give Kirk Cousins time, he could shred you. If you blitz him, he's not very good. I think the Chiefs win this game, but it's probably going to be closer than a lot of people are expecting. The Atlanta Falcons have a lot of weapons on offense. Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London on the outside, Darnell Mooney. They're pretty good. And the Chiefs are really missing L'Jarius Sneed, who's now with the Titans. So if the Falcons won this game, I wouldn't be totally surprised. But I think the Chiefs get it done. I don't know if they cover the spread, though. I think the Chiefs win this game really, really close, 24-23. I think it's going to be a very, very close game. But I just like where the Chiefs are at right now. But there is no Pacheco, right? And Pacheco is a huge loss for this team. But the Falcons' defense is not very good. The pass rush has not necessarily been great. So I think, 24-23, relatively high-scoring game. It could be like a 27-30 type of game for the Chiefs. Actually, let's switch it up. Let's go more of a higher-scoring game. I'm going 30-27 for the Chiefs to win barely. And wrapping up week 3, we have 2 Monday night games. Jaguars at the Bills. The Jaguars have looked awful. That game last week against the Cleveland Browns, they look terrible. Doug Peterson has a first-class ticket to getting fired. They paid Trevor Lawrence all that money to be not good at football. They just turned the ball over, penalties, bad throws. The defense has looked okay. The defensive line so-so, but the secondary is not very good. The Buffalo Bills, I think, dominate this game. I'm saying dominant fashion. Let's say 25-13. I think the Buffalo Bills have their way with the Jaguars. They're playing very uninspired football. They don't look confident. To go to Buffalo and beat the Bills is just not going to happen, in my opinion. I love the Buffalo Bills in this spot to dominate. You know what? I'm going to have the Bills score even more points. 27-13. Buffalo Bills get a big W. Then the Bengals at the Commanders. Big line, 8 points for a team that hasn't looked particularly great. The Bengals could go to 0-3. Probably not, though. I'm looking for the Bengals to get their first win of the year over this Commanders team, but it's going to be a close game. It's going to be very similar to the Chiefs game. A lot of sloppy play, kind of dogfight game. I'm going 21-20. Bengals barely beat the Commanders. It's going to be a really good game. Jaden Daniels has looked probably the best out of all the rookie quarterbacks, in my opinion. Him and Terry McLaurin should have a pretty good game. But I think the Bengals finally get a win on Monday night, 21-20. All right, NFL fans, that wraps up all of my Week 3 predictions with scores. Let me know in the comments below. Am I crazy? Am I going to do better than I did last week? Went 500 with my money line picks. I think we can do a little bit better this week. You always want to come out positive, because if you're positive, you're winning money in the long run. But if you guys haven't yet, check out my memberships. I give out all my survivor picks, all my bets, and I'm going to start doing a secret daily fantasy for the Millionaire Maker on Friday. So that's 3 members-only videos each and every Friday, $4.99 a month. We did really, really well. We broke even last week, but week 1, we were up 60% on all of our bets. So if you followed all my bets week 1, you already made almost a year's worth of the membership fee. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.